Hi, my name is Marvin Bryson, the author of the self-help book Expectancy, a caregiver story of navigating family issues between retirement and transition. I'd like to welcome you to our 3 Quick Questions for the Caregiver series, where I interview individuals regarding the plethora of issues surrounding caregiving. My guest today is Vatrice Gibbs. How are you, Vatrice?
Hi, Marvin. I'm doing great. How are you?
I can't complain. Thanks a lot for taking time to be with us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some bio on your little bio information.
Oh, well, how much time do we have? Let's see. um, I can start with currently, I'm an educator. I'm a former real estate agent, entrepreneur on many different products and things and services, and also a former engineer. Engineer by trade, educator by choice and passion right now. And just kind of getting used to this new virtual education territory that I know some people have experienced, but it's totally new to me and most of the folks in my industry right now.
Wow. Aren't we all getting ready to this new virtual normal? I'm so used to doing things on Zoom now. I don't know if I want to go back to doing as much face-to-face stuff.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like I said, I really appreciate your time today. And so let's go ahead and get to it. Tell us a little bit about your caregiving situation.
My caregiving situation has, it started with my father, who was experiencing some strokes, many strokes at the beginning that matriculated into much stronger, it wasn't a massive stroke. I wouldn't categorize it as that. However, maybe it was, and they just never said those words. But a few years ago, when I was living in the same area as my parents, I've been gone for many years, ever since I graduated from high school, basically. And I just happened to have moved back for a little bit, and my dad started going through episodes of falls, forgetting things and whatnot, and just not having the energy, not moving around as much. And a couple of times, more than whatever, I'm getting phone calls that he's fallen in his apartment. And the last straw, per se, or as they say, when the rubber met the road, it was the day after Father's Day. I was planning to go visit him a couple of days after that because I lived in Maryland at the time. And I was like, Dad, I really want to come spend Father's Day with you, but I'm going to be finished with school in a couple of days. And then that way I'll be able to come home and spend more time with you and hang out. And we were both looking forward to it. Unfortunately, on that Monday, right before I was getting ready to come home, I get a call that he'd had another fall, had been found like many hours later by his girlfriend, and had to be taken to, a medical facility. And I'm just going to shorten it to say within a week, we're in a rehab facility. And in that one weekend, he went from joking around and being my same old dad that I knew, saying, "Hey, baby, look, I can hold my arm up." And then, actually, he picked it up by his sleeve and said, "Look," bam. And as soon as he let go of the sleeve, the arm just falls to his lap. And he just thought it was so funny. I'm like, that's my dad. The next day, I had to do something with my mother, so I didn't get to see my dad. Then on Sunday, I come back with my dog. My dad loves my little dog, Sassy. And I come in with Sassy, and I'm expecting him to perk up like, "Oh, hey, there's my girl." Dad looks at both of us like we're strangers. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I'm realizing that something has happened. And I'm talking to all of his caregivers in the rehab facility. And I ultimately learned that, one, no one has recognized any change in my dad's attitude, personality, nothing. Because they've been marking the charts. He's okay. Two, I come to find out that, well, who's checking the charts? none of the same people had worked for about 3 days in a row. So you haven't seen, this person hasn't seen my dad since like Wednesday, and it's Sunday, you know, and so forth. They're doing so much rotation. No one really can say, oh, the last time I saw Mr. Gibbs, he was full of energy, you know, so they're just passing along these generic notes. So that was a major concern. And so began, you know, all of this movement to finding the right facility, to getting my dad the actual help that he needed. And when I was able to get him out of that facility, which was maybe 2 days later, and letting them know, you know, I needed, my dad's a vet, so I sought to try to get him into veteran care, where I thought he might get a little bit more, you know, assistance. And that move, didn't go exactly the way I had planned or thought it would go, but it resulted in the best situation, because they're like, oh, we don't have any beds at the VA hospital that's local, so we're going to have to send him to the next best option, which was VCU Medical Facility in Richmond. And I'm like, hey, that works, because that's an educational facility, and I trust that their staff and even their students are going to be on point. The staff, because you got to teach the people the right thing, and the students, because they're learning, should be learning it the right way, and so forth. And that was actually a good move, you know, and made a major change with my dad, and we started to see some improvement. So.
Okay, wow, that's really interesting. Your situation parallels mine a lot, particularly with the, you know, I guess the gradual weakness and things, but then all of a sudden the dementia is getting terrible.
Yes.
And I know, you know, when you had to find a rehab facility, I mean, you literally, they give you like a couple of days. I mean, you got like, what, 72 hours, 48 hours, something like that. Was your situation like that?
I don't remember being limited to that kind of time. If it was, and I'm trying to scratch my head here, my brain a little bit. I want to say the time was limited in the sense that maybe his benefits or something, maybe it was a Medicare thing or Medicaid, one of the two, and something was going to run out in a number of days. So he had to be placed in a facility within a certain period of time. That may have been the limitation.
Yeah, I can definitely, you know, relate to where you're coming from with that, because in my book I talk about, you know, the different things, you know, particularly Medicaid and veterans benefits and all that type of stuff. And the system seems to be geared toward, I guess, indigent people as opposed to people who can pay. It seems like, you know, there's a lot more leeway that way. And not to say that your dad was indigent or anything, but I'm just trying to, you know, a lot of times you have limitations on the policy. And that veteran situation we have, I mean, I've had to deal with as well. So far as, you know, I had to actually become a federal fiduciary to manage my mom's VA forms, or VA benefits, because they didn't recognize the general durable power of attorney that the states recommend. So speaking of the book, have you had a chance to read the book? I didn't hear what you said. Say that again.
Nothing.
Okay. No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, like I was saying, you know, a lot of people hadn't had a chance to get around to it. So, you know, basically, you know, it gives me, you know, a chance to kind of say that I wrote the book to kind of help people figure out the right questions for their situation. And so I'll just basically leave it at that. So.
Marvin, one, I'm so proud of you for taking, you know, going down that road and having the courage, taking the time to actually document your experience and write that book. I am so proud of you for doing that, just in general. But I want to say that you know, you always tell me I'm hardest on myself, and this is going to be no exception here. That I wish I was a better reader, a more fervent reader, or that you had it on, maybe if you had it on Audible.
Right.
Got through it a lot faster. But my
right.
point being that had I read the book, I probably would have made some better decisions and just been a bit less stressed in making some of those decisions and figuring out what was what during that time. So
I hear you. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, like we were saying, you don't really learn from the things you do right. You learn from the things that you necessarily do wrong. And so, I've actually written a second edition of the book, and it covers, I just finished the manuscript and it should be out hopefully by the end of the year, early next year. And I actually have, chapters on skilled nursing, palliative care, hospice, and self-care. Because self-care is really important, but more importantly, the audio book's being recorded right now. So one of the things I did with the first edition that I learned, really I had health issues, so I couldn't market it quite right. So with this next go around, I'm hitting it from all ends. I'm doing an audio book, I'm doing an ebook in addition to the paperback. And what I found out is, as I've walked this walk, I've become a advocate for caregivers. Advocacy has really turned out to be my thing, not necessarily, money, because when you're independent author, it's not like you get a big advance from a publishing company, and most people don't. If you look, most people who are writers, they do something else. They write and they teach. J.K. Rowling and Stephen King and John Grisham and those folks are the exception, not the rule. So anyway, that's pretty much about all I have. And like I said, I really want to thank you for your time. And before we close out, is there any advice that you have for somebody that might find themselves in a caregiving situation, something that, some positive note that you can give people to kind of hold on to when they go through this relatively harrowing experience?
my best advice right now would probably be one, read your book. Because I do remember kind of sifting through it at the time, and probably because I was stressing myself and rushing, doing this and that, we get caught up in our own lives in the day to day. I do remember learning some things about like definitions of things. I appreciated you putting things like that in there. A few of the scenarios and so forth were helpful. And I think in my rush, I probably just did not get to the parts that I needed most at that time. So doing your research, reading the book, like a book like yours, which was a very easy read, and just getting the information in advance. I mean, we know that time will come that the child becomes the parent and hopefully has to, I'm saying hopefully from the standpoint, hopefully you have your parents around long enough to reach this stage of their lives. And, because I know we never want to we never want to lose our parents. And just make sure that you're prepared. So probably never too start.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned all that, because the glossary, I feel like, is probably the best part of the book, or the most impactful part of the book, because there's probably somewhere between 75 and 120 some odd legal and medical terms that you'll need to know. And as background, a lot of people think I'm a filmmaker, but before I got into filmmaking, I worked in healthcare for like 15 years. So I worked for the Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for clinical research companies. And I also worked on Capitol Hill. And I remember one of the first things we had to learn at Blue Cross and Blue Shield was the nomenclature. So it was basically this an index of medical terms. And I'm also a paralegal. So that really helps. All of that helped me be able to navigate dealing with healthcare professionals, but also there's a discipline in law now called elder law. And it's relatively new. It's about 20 years old. And but it also helped me really communicate with the elder law attorneys. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And the main reason I wrote the book, it was almost therapy, but the way it's laid out is, for the most part, I want to help people figure out what questions they need to ask. And if they read the book, it should give them an idea of what questions they need to ask for their situation. Because I say it almost in every interview, if you don't ask the right questions, you can't get the right answers. So again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and, you know, sharing your personal story. I know it's hard for some people. It was hard for me. It's hard for all of us, really. And you know, because it's really personal. But thanks again. And again, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate in your project. And like I said, I think preparation. You can't prepare too soon.
Yeah.
More questions will come up when you get in the thick of it, but if you have a little bit of a heads up, that helps. And yeah.
It really helps because, you know, I felt like I felt like we were counterpunching the whole time. And, you know, anybody who knows me knows I'm very prepared. And, but there's really nothing that can prepare you for this, because it's not like there's you know, you're gonna get a schedule of when somebody's health is going to change. And my mom was retired for over 20-25 years. So I don't know anybody who makes a plan that, you know, even if you make a 25-year plan, you have to tweak it along the way. So again, like you're saying, you know, try to get out in front of it. And plus it's good for, you know, people our age who are dealing with their parents, but also it's good for people younger than us to kind of plan for themselves, and also people our age to plan for themselves. Because as we, you know, I'm a little older than you, but I know I'm about, you know, maybe 8-10 years from retirement, and I am not ready. so I got to take some of my own advice and try to, you know, make things a little more better for myself. So, okay, well, that's about it. We're going to wrap up. So thank you again for everything. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.